My name is Precious Roylyn B. Rosales, and I will be reporting about speech events in pragmatics. Now, the one that developed this term, or the one that coined this term in pragmatics, is Del Himes, and that was way back 1962. Now, he is the founder of ethnography, or it is a study of how people talked, ethnography of speaking. So, ethnography is relating to the scientific description of peoples and cultures with their customs, habits, and mutual differences. So Himes actually insisted that language should not be studied as a one unit, but it should be studied as how it is communicated to the people who used it. So that's why he is the founder of the ethnography. And he said that the starting point is the ethnographic analysis of the communication conduct of a community. So he is really focusing on how the language is used in a particular group of people, not as language as a unit of communication, but how is it communicated. Okay, so this is Del Himes. Okay, so he was a linguist, social linguist, anthropologist, a folklorist who established disciplinary foundations for the comparative ethnographic study of language use. His research focused upon the languages in the Pacific Northwest. So I don't know where that is. Okay, now Himes developed 6 units that indicate the area of culture where speech is present. So although speech events actually belongs to the 6 units, but we're gonna touch a little bit of each of these 6 units. So the first one is the speech community. So a speech community is comprised of a group of people that often use communication signs. Because they communicate in a particular way, they're different from other groups. So a speech community doesn't just stop in countries, divisions of countries, but it refers to a particular group of people. It could be that they're just 2 people, 3, depends on what kind of or how they're gonna use the language. Say for example, here in our town we have the school community. So school community is have speech events that are different from, let's say, LGBT community. So they use languages differently from one community to another. So that is speech community. Next is speech situation. Now you can find speech situation by finding times when people talk or don't talk. Okay, so speech situation, are they required to talk or they're not required to talk? So say for example in an acquaintance party, of course, since it's an acquaintance party, so you are required to be acquainted to your classmates. So there's going to be a lot of talking there. So that is a speech situation, people that are talking. And also, if you're going to compare an acquaintance party to, let's say, when you're in a public vehicle, like in a bus. Okay, so usually if you're in a bus, you don't talk to your co-passengers. You just sit there and wait till you arrive. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to talk to the driver. You have to talk to the people sitting beside you. Okay, so that is also another speech situation. Okay, next is speech event. So this is where, or this is the focus of this presentation. So it refers to activities that are governed by rules or norms of speech. So in a particular speech event, the way that you're going to use the language would depend on what kind of event you're in, would depend on what kind of people are you talking to. So again, it is governed by rules. So there's particular language that you can use in a particular speech event. Anyways, don't worry, we're going to be digging deeper into this once I'm finished with all the 6 units. Next is communicative acts. So what action is getting done when particular words are used? Okay, so this is basically the body language of words, or the body language of the language. So you're going to be using the words at the same time you're exhibiting actions to use them. Okay, so say for example, in let's say in Italy, okay, so what they do is that they always, do this thing with their hands. This is their gestures almost all the time. Okay, so they say, I want that spaghetti. So you will know immediately by the kind of acts that they use together with the words that, hey, okay, probably he is an Italian. Okay, so we say delicious. Okay, so that's the usual body language that Italians do. So these are their specific communicative acts. Okay, next is communicative styles. Refers to the way someone or a speech community usually speaks. Okay, so a person, so there's a person that is very subtle when she or he speaks. There's a person that is very authoritative when he or she speaks. Okay, so that's their communicative style. Okay, there's just person that's very frank or brutal when it comes to information. This person that really likes, to beating around the bush. And there's a person who is very romantic when speaking there. So that's the communicative styles. When it comes to speech community, there's a particular speech community that also has a particular or a distinctive communicative style. So I forgot the name of the language and the group of people, but basically they are well known to be subtle speakers. They speak really slow in a way that they speak really sweet, that even if they're really threatening your life, it doesn't sound like it. So say patyum takaron there. So the words are threatening, but the communicative style is different from the way the words are coming out from the speaker's mouth. Okay, and that's how they usually speak. I forgot the name, but it's very famous. We've been talking about it a lot of times. So that's how they usually speaks. Okay, so next is the way of speaking. So ways of speaking can refer to styles of speech, but may be used in various situations and events. It can also be used to describe speech patterns that are characteristics of a culture. So it depends. Now, way of speaking is different from communicative styles, because communicative styles depends on how you speak, but ways of speaking would refer on the how the language is used in a particular situation and events. So say for example, the way of speaking in the court or inside the court, talking about lawyers and judges. So they speak, the way of their speaking is different compared to the speech community in, let's say, a pub or a bar. Okay, so the ways of speaking are different in these particular speech communities. Okay, it could be that the speaking is serious, it could be that it's romantic, it could be that it's just a friendly chat, it would depend again on that event that the language is used for. There. Okay, so guys, again, if you have any questions, you can just comment down below. I'm gonna do my best to answer. Okay, next is there. So we're gonna be focusing on the speech event, and that is here. Okay, so speech event. So what is a speech event? So there are actually several definitions. Okay, so first definition that I think is very understandable is speech event is it refers to all social activities in which language plays an important role and can be referred to as speech events. So social activities. So when you say social activities, it has something to do with you know, activities involving people talking to each other. It involves talking to each other. So that is a speech event. Next up is the occurrence or ongoing linguistic interaction in one form of speech or more that involves two parties, namely speakers and opponents of speech, with one point of speech in a particular time, place, and situation. That is according to Chair and August in 2010 in their book. It's page 47. So again, ongoing linguistic interaction. So if we go back to where is it? We're gonna go back here. Speech situations. Okay, there are two types, right? So speech situation where people are required to talk and people are not required to talk. So speech event will occur here when people talk, okay, because there is a language interaction. Okay, that's very important. Okay, if there is no language interaction whatsoever, so that cannot be considered as speech event. Okay, there. Okay, so next up is there. So next is it's a verbal behavior in all societies that can be categorized in terms of speech events. It's a unit of verbal behavior bounded in time and space. Events vary in the degree to which they are isolable. So it means that they can be isolated from one event to another. So there's a great distinction. They range from ritual situations where behavior is largely predetermined to casual everyday talk. Okay, so it's actually a verbal behavior. When you say verbal behavior, so that's language behavior in all societies, and they can be categorized in terms of speech events. Okay, so units of verbal behavior bounded in time and space. So they're bounded. That means that there's a rule depending on what time and what space they're in. So events vary in the degree to which they're isolable. So again, there's a great distinction between one speech event to another. So for example, they range from ritual situations where behavior is largely predetermined. So one example of speech event that is isolable to another is a ritual situation. Say for example, in a mass gathering. Okay, so it is more on ritual, so it's predetermined. So you know what the priest will tell you, you know what's gonna happen, you know the speech acts, everything. So it's predetermined. So that is one example of speech event in a mass, or let's say a wedding. A wedding is also a ritual situation. Okay, so everything that you say in that particular event is pretty much predetermined. So the wedding couples, what will they say? The priest or the pastors. That's another example of speech event. To casual everyday talk. So if you're just talking to your friends, if you're having interaction with your boyfriend or with your husband and with your wife. Okay, that is another speech event. Okay, so I hope that I am understandable. Next is, what are the components of speech event? So the first component is the situation, the place and time at which the event took place. So where and when the event took place. So that is the situation. Now there are also two components of situation. First one is the setting. So that's the physical context in which the interaction is, or the interaction takes place. Their interaction takes place. So physical context, is it a building, is it a small house, is it a garden? So they're the physical attributes of the speech event. Next is the scene. So the scene is focused, or its focus is psychological rather than physical. So setting is the physical, the scene is what is the mindset of the speakers, how do the speakers say the language. So that belongs to situation, and that is specifically that belongs to scene. Okay, again, setting is for the physical environment, and scene is the mindset of the people involved in the speech event. Okay, next up is the participants. So basically it's just the people involved in the speech, the speaker or the hearer. You have the audience. It depends on what kind of speech event are we talking about. Okay, ends is the purpose of the speech. Why is it that you're going to use language to a particular person? So the ends also has two components. So the ends has outcomes. So this is conventionally expected, publicly stated from the point of view of the community. So conventionally expected, it means that you are doing that speech because it's what's required. So say for example, you are in a, let's say, acquaintance party. So you're having a tete or having a talk with your classmates. Basically the outcome of that is to be acquainted with each other, so that you'll know your classmates, you'll know your teachers, you'll know the people in the school. So that is conventionally expected. So that's why you talk to them. But we also have this ends called goals. So this refers to the speaker's purposes, or a speaker's purpose of the interaction. So it might be the same as the outcome. So let's say again you are in an acquaintance party. So it might be that your purpose is to get acquainted with your classmate, to get to know them better. Or you can have a different purpose in your own self, that you're going to be talking to this person because you wanted to be close to her, because you wanted to court her, you're physically attracted to her. So that is a speaker's purpose. It may be identical to the outcome, or it is distinct to what your personal purpose is, or what your personal goal is, why you're using that language. Why are you using that language in a particular speech event? Okay. Next is the act sequence. Okay, so sequences of acts that make up the speech event. Sequences. What is the first thing that you need to do? Second, the third, and the last. So, say for example, when you're trying to introduce yourself, okay, the first time that you're going to introduce yourself, or the first time that you're having this particular conversation with someone that you don't know and you want to know her or him. So you cannot just say, can we go out? Can we have a coffee? You cannot just say that. So in an act sequence, you have to introduce yourself first. Hey, hi, I'm Precious, and I was just in the next table or something like that. So you have to introduce yourself first. That is the act sequence. And then you immediately talk about the weather. Then you ask him or her about subtle things. Okay, there. So dili ka mag feeling close. Okay, na usahay nga when we talk to a person, and then if we don't follow a particular act sequence or like rules, now tag feeling close. So instead nga ganahan ka magig-close ni Jad, di na hinuon kaya nga naman FC ra ka because you didn't follow the act sequence properly. Okay, next is it actually has components of speech, or components of act sequence. So we have the message form. Okay, so the message form is that he said, what time is it? So what particular words are used? What particular sentence are used? What is the particular word say of the speaker? That is the message form. Now the message content, this could be represented as he said it's time to go. Okay, so there's a different meaning, there's a different content from the form. So the form is just basically asking what time is it, but in reality the content of that message is it's time to go. Okay, so those are acts of speech in a speech event. Okay, so next is the key. So basically the key is the tone, manner, or spirit in which an act is done. So what is the tone? Is it funny? Are they having fun? Is it serious? Is it sad? How are the people using the language in relation to the emotions involved when speaking? So that is the key, that is the tone of speaking. Okay, next is we have instrumentalities. How is the speech delivered to participants? So is it face-to-face? Is it telephone? Is it video call? Is it an online conversation? There's what are the things used in speaking. Okay, next is the norms of interaction. So these are the conventional rules relating to the conduct of the speech event. So norms of interpretations are also of crucial importance in speech events and in cross-cultural interaction generally. These refer to the rules which determine the interpretation of a particular act. So norms of interaction, what are the standard way that the language is used in a speech event? So say for example in Japan, so Japanese, it's part of their culture to show respect to the person that they are talking to. They usually bow their heads, okay, before they talk or during the language used. So they say good afternoon, good morning, nice to meet you, there. So they always bow their heads to show their respect. Okay, so that is their norms of interaction. That's how they talk. Okay, and Japanese interpret that as respectable. They respect the people that they're talking to. However, in America or in the Philippines, we don't do that culturally. So we just automatically say what we want to say. Like say, how are you? It's good to meet you, without bowing our heads. Now sometimes it could be that it's a clash of culture, especially if you don't understand each other, if you don't understand the culture. So probably the Japanese would interpret it as, not respectable because you don't bow their heads the way they do. So there. So in a cross-cultural interaction, you have to make sure that you know the culture of the people that you're going to talk to before the speech event to avoid cultural clash there. So that is norms of interaction. Next up is the last one. It's the genre, the overall mood of the speech event. So is it just a casual conversation? Is it formal? Is it informal? Okay, so that is the genre of the speech event. Okay, now I will be giving you an example of a speech event that we're gonna determine the components present in this particular speech event. Now, since I'm a fan of I'm really a great fan of Friends. It's a sitcom, so we're gonna try that, and then we're gonna try to analyze which component which component is present and what component is that. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a video of the particular scene or a speech event in Friends, the Friends sitcom.
Guess what?
You got a job?
Are you kidding? I'm trained for nothing. I was laughed out of 12 interviews today.
And yet you're surprisingly upbeat.
Well, you would be too if you found Joan and David boots on sale, 50% off.
Oh, how well you know me.
They're my new, I don't need a job, I don't need my parents, I've got great boots. How'd you pay for them? Credit card. Mm-hmm. And who pays for that? My father.
Come on, you can't live off your parents your whole life.
I know that. That's why I was getting married.
Give her a break. It's hard being on your own for the first time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I remember when I first came to this city. I was 14. My mom had just killed herself and my stepdad was back in prison. And I got here and I didn't know anybody. And I ended up living with this albino guy who was like cleaning windshields outside Port Authority. And then he killed himself. And then I found aromatherapy. So believe me, I know exactly how you feel.
The word you're looking for is... Anyway...
All right, you ready?
I don't think so.
Oh, come on. Cut.
Welcome to the real world. It sucks. You're gonna love it.
Alright, so we're gonna be analyzing the components of the speech event in one of the scenes of the sitcom Friends. So you have watched the video, and we're gonna be analyzing that speech event based on the components that we have just learned. So situation. So in that speech event, there are two settings. So the first one is in the cafe, okay, where Rachel came in with her boots, and the second one was in Monica's house, the time that they have caught Rachel's credit cards. Okay, so that is the setting. That is the setting, and we also have the scene. So as you can see, the scene focuses on the psychological rather than physical. So basically, the mindset of the characters there are they're all friendly and they want to help Rachel genuinely. So they wanted to help Rachel become independent. So that is the mindset of the characters there. Okay, and then next up are the participants. So basically the people that are involved there are the characters, the main characters. We have Monica, Joey, Ross, Chandler, Phoebe, and Rachel. And the ends is to help Rachel to start being independent. So that's what their motivation is. That's what's the purpose of their conversation to Rachel and all the other friends. Act sequence is, the sequence of the act and the words that they tell during the scene. So Rachel enters the cafe and shows her new boots. Monica asks her how she paid for it, and she says through her father's credit card. Now Monica's question is kind of remark. Now if you remember in the ends, okay, so the purpose of the speech, we have the outcomes, right? So conventionally, what is the conventional expectations? Oh, act sequence. So basically, if you remember, okay, go back. Okay, so if you remember, we have norms, act sequence, right? So you have the message form. Okay, so the message form in there is that Monica was asking, how did you pay for that boots? That's the form. Monica said, how did you pay? Or Monica asks, how did you pay for that boots? Again, Rachel reluctantly says, it's my father. How did you pay for it? Through credit cards. And who pays for your credit card? So that was what Monica asks. Who pays for your credit card? And then Rachel said, reluctantly, she said, my father. Because the message content of that question is not the question itself, but it has a hidden content that says, hey Rachel, you want to be independent, but then in whatever you buy, your father still pays for it. Okay, so that is the message content of that question. So they want to encourage her to stop depending on her father. There. Okay, because of Monica's question. All right, now next up is the key. All right, so the key tone for this one, actually, you have many tones that you can choose. Okay, it's either it's friendly, yes, it's friendly, sarcastic, frank. There, so that's the key tone. So that's the tone of the conversation. Instrument, that is oral, because they talk to each other informally, because they're just group of friends. So it's not formal, it's not predetermined. Okay, so there, it's informal because they're just talking to each friends. They're a bunch of friends talking to each other. The norms of interaction, because they're close friends, they talk jokingly, frankly, and sarcastically to each other. So that is the norms. How do they interact with each other? And the genre is, of course, friendly. Okay, so even if there's sarcasm, even if there is a brutal honesty in the conversation, but you cannot hear someone who's hurt during the conversation because it has a friendly genre. There, it's not hurting the characters or the personalities, but instead they were there to help the patient. So there, that's how you analyze a speech event. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you understand what speech event is, and I hope that you understand the components comprising the speech event. Again, if you have any questions, just comment below, and I'm gonna try my best to answer any of your questions. So thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.